Yeah, at this point, I think it's pretty fair to say that Playboi Carti is one of the most polarizing and influential rap figures of the last decade and a half. Despite having a long-lasting career, the man has only dropped 4 complete albums and has had massive leaks, intermittent singles in between, and despite all of that and inconsistent periods between releases, he has managed to amass one of the largest cult followings of any mainstream artist and influence an entire generation of underground artists to sound like him. And despite all of these numerous reinventions of himself stylistically, he's managed to hold on to the same core fan base that he's had since he started. And despite the fact that every album has differed in sound selection specifically, there is a very distinctive through line throughout all of Carti's production. And there is a genuine mindset that goes into every single Carti beat and every single beat that Playboi Carti gets on. The first thing that I know people are going to say is that every single Carti song is different and every single album sounds different. And I agree with that. I'm not saying that all of his music sounds the same. I'm actually saying quite the opposite, because I would never think that a project like Dial It sounds anything like I Am Music. I would never think that I Am Music sounds like Self-Titled. I would never think that Self-Titled sounds like Whole Lotta Red. But if we were to look at all of the music he's ever released up until this point, there are very distinctive factors that every single beat has, and it's truly interesting to look at because regardless of the drum selection or what plugins are being used, there is a different feeling and mindset that goes into every single Carti beat. The first one that I can think of is repetition. We see this a lot, particularly on Die Lit and also Whole Lotta Red, and occasionally on I Am Music, where there are entire beats that are essentially 2-bar or 4-bar loops. The main songs that come to mind are New Tank,
Wake up, filthy.
R.I.P. Fredo,
Hitting that beef Nash me, yeah, hitting that boy.
Home KOD, and Evil Jordan, where there might be an occasional drum change here and there, but for the most part, the whole beat is engineered for repetition.
Bring that money on, daddy waiting for it. Bring that money on, daddy.
Another common through line that I'll see is that a lot of his beats are engineered for straight up just maximum impact. There is no 8-bar intro. The moment you press play, you are hit with all of the sounds in the beat at once. And if there is an intro, it's because it factors into the emotion itself. But for the most part, intros and song structure and beat structure are completely optional. A good example of this is a beat like Backdoor, where the moment you press play, you're hit with these crazy samples. Or a beat like Mileage, where the moment you press play, you're hit with the core foundation of the beat, which is a couple of chords here and there and just intermittent plucks throughout. On aggressive beats like Stop Breathing, you're hit with basically the sonic equivalent of getting a bucket of water thrown in your face with maximum aggression. Regardless of what emotion it is, it can be happy, it can be sad, it can be dark, it can be angry. That feeling hits you the moment you press play. There is no gradual build up to it.
Wake up, filthy.
And one of the coolest parts about Carti's beats is that music theory is mainly a template to build on rather than a set of structured rules you're supposed to follow. The first couple beats that come to mind in terms of beats that literally don't fall within any major or minor scale and are mainly note centered and pitch centered are beats like Toxic and Pop Out and Rockstar Made, where they don't align with any sort of scale, period. Location is another great example where the song straight up just shifts down and up an entire half step in the middle of the track. And there are multiple songs off of Whole Lotta Red where the 808 doesn't hit the root note and hits a completely different note within the scale for a pretty substantial amount of time. And it's really cool to see that this is coming from an artist of his level of visibility, because I feel like in mainstream contemporary rap, we'll see a lot of artists that are trying to make music that is very palatable, whereas the entire appeal behind Carti is that he intentionally does the opposite. There are even songs on I Am Music specifically where there are 808 notes that are completely out of scale. The biggest example that comes to mind is Evil Jordan, where the song is in C sharp minor and then the 808 just randomly hits the A sharp note and it evokes this level of dissonance within the listener. And speaking of 808s and different sorts of drum sounds, I feel like one of the most defining characteristics of a Carti beat is the unorthodox drum programming. A lot of songs, at least on IM Music specifically, have snares that are off-beat or off-grid and don't follow the normal space that they're supposed to follow on like trap music specifically. On Die Lit, we'll see a lot of instances where Pierre Bourne intentionally uses sound effects where a crash or a percussive sound would be. And mixing isn't based on technicality, it's based off of aesthetic alignment with the song itself. So if we were to factor all of these different points into one specific area, that is how a Carti beat is made. And with that, we're gonna go crack open FL. I'm gonna go see if I can make a couple of what I would consider to be Carti beats, and hopefully they sound cool, and then we'll go from there. So with all the knowledge that we've accumulated, I think it's time to put it to the test and do a breakdown of a Carti beat that I made, or at least what I would think a Carti beat would sound like based off of everything we learned. I'm gonna play the beat by itself, and then we're gonna go through every individual sound and show how I made it. As to not completely fry my CPU, I'm going to be going through every individual sound by itself, and let's show what we started with. It's one of my favorite things to do when it comes to a Carti beat, especially because like it's not that uncommon in his music, but it's also just a cool little nostalgic feel, is I'll go to like a sample that I already made and I'll chop it in Fruity Slicer, because it really forces me to ignore the music theory. Again, what we're doing is going off of vibes, we're not going off of what it shows on a computer screen. So right now, this is what we got. Added a little bit of reverb to make it a little bit more ambient, and then I boosted the highs in order to kind of bring out the choppy feel of it. And then from there, I did a random pad from Xenology. The preset was called Air Lead, and then I just took the mono off so that I could make genuine chords with it. On this, I used one of my one-shots. It's called One Shot Kit Volume 1, and I'll be putting the link in the description. The one-shot that I used for this one specifically is called Lead Melancholy Hill, and it's out of the One Shot Kit Volume 1 pack. As you can see, I recorded it in mono because I used genuine synths to make my one-shot kits, and the synth that I used was a Moog Grandmother, which is a monophonic synth. So as a result, in order to really kind of bring the lead out of it and kind of make it a little bit more airy and a little bit more immersive, which is what Carti beats typically have, rather than a mono signal, I threw hyperchorus on it and just copied and pasted the chords. From there, I did the same thing. I just copied and pasted into a different lead. The lead preset is literally talk. But in order to avoid that little attack sound at the beginning, I reversed it and changed the length. When you do this instead of time stretching it, one of the cool things about this is that essentially it makes everything either faster or slower depending on where the note is in the piano roll. And when you put something in reverse, you can have some really cool texture. And then from there, I put the hyperchorus on it as well. From there, I used another sound out of my One Shot Kit Volume 1. The sound is called Pluck Glidey. Now this one I did time stretch because of what the tail end looks like after the first pluck plays, and you'll hear it. Now for this one, I added reverb, I added a little bit of distortion of waves plugin in halftime, so that essentially every individual low octave note kind of plays at a different time in order to make it a little bit more, I would say, the mid frequencies as opposed to high mid, because the fact that the notes are so high, it brings a little bit of the normal mid and the low end. Added a video game pluck from Omnisphere just at the very tail end in order to kind of do those normal kind of glitters and flutter effects that Carti has in a lot of his beats. From here, I went to Xenology, and I had what I would consider to be one of those crazy texture sounds that you hear in Carti beats, where essentially there is a genuine lead being played, but it's so immersed in different effect plugins, be it Portal or Shaperbox or Tantra 2. And in this particular situation, I literally used 2 different Shaperbox instances. Again, it doesn't make sense musically, but that's kind of the point. When we take everything off, this is what it used to sound like. Mess with the portamento a little bit, turned it into unison, and mess with the cutoff so that the high end is really, really present. From there, I put everything into one individual channel, and then I down pitched it however much, and then upshifted it however much. One of my favorite things to do is put an entire melody through the wave sound shifter by routing everything to one individual channel, because it gives a lot of bit more flexibility, and on top of that, you can do a band EQ on everything and just cut out all the low end so that nothing clashes without having to do it on every individual sound. From there, I decided to just make a very crazy drum pattern and follow what it is we've learned, which is, again, we go by ear. Drums can be off grid, everything can be off grid, everything can kind of be different than the normal standard. That's kind of the whole point of what makes these beats so fun to make. So in order to really kind of focus on what a Carti beat is, I made a very, very unorthodox drum pattern, and I focused purely on what I thought sounded cool. Now, I'm going to break this down very, very quickly because it's not that crazy. There's just a lot of different sounds going on, but a lot of it is really ear candy. Now, the first thing I did on this beat was I literally just made an 808 pattern, and what I do on beats like this typically, in order to really kind of focus on ignoring the music theory and what I think sounds cool, I'll essentially like make my drum patterns with my 808s in a completely separate channel than the actual melody itself, so that I'm not getting distracted by the ghost notes and the piano roll, and I'm really listening to what I think sounds good. And what it is I came up with in terms of the 808s was this. Now on beats like this, one of my favorite things to do is layer with a synth bass, and then I'll essentially put the synth bass in a channel, cut out the low end, and then add reverb because it adds more ambiance to the 808 notes themselves, so that the 808s are as much of an instrument as everything else is. So in order to create a kind of a different feel in different parts of the beat, what I did was I used two different 808s, and I set the cut self to each individual channel so that they're both the same, so that when one 808 starts and stops playing and the other one comes in, creates a situation where instead of having to do like the normal kind of change in the envelope thing, it's a little bit less work. So on one section of the beat you have this one, and then on the other section of the beat you have this one. So in order to focus on what it is I think sounds good, and again, focusing on more unorthodox drum patterns, I had the snares at the second end come in sooner than later. And again, really, really weird snare choice because there's a lot of like echoes going on here. And then I layered that with another snare, layered that with a clap. Has that weird little tail end to it. And then I added a really cool hi-hat pattern. I just clicked stretch, and I also messed with the pitch a little. Oh yeah, and one more thing, I added just an open hat. Again, not following the normal pattern. You know, one of them follows a snare, and then one of them follows a little bit of the off pattern. And it sounds really cool when you put everything together. This is what you get. And when you put everything together, so this is the second Carti beat I made, and on this one I tried really, really hard to just focus purely on the textural component of the beats. And again, on this one, the beat isn't really melodic. Each melodic note is mainly just a texture and a rhythmic element in order to bring further emphasis on his vocals. Now, I'm going to break down how I made this beat because, again, it's very, very simple. I would actually argue it's probably one of the simplest beats I've ever made in my entire career. All of these sounds are in a one-shot kit that I'm currently working on and plan to release on my website pretty soon. So the first sound that we have is this little gating sound. The second sound we have is just a very, very basic brass. And then when we go from there, the only other sound that just kind of maintains the bounce is just a bell. Then I put all of them together and linked them to a different channel, and I simply shifted them down using the wave sound shifter and then exported them. And then when I exported them, I added different sections in which I pitched certain elements 100% down, such as the bells. There's another section later in the beat where I pitched the brass down and left everything else the same, and that was how I added like small amounts of variation. But if you literally look at the project file, the entire melody loops throughout the entire beat, which is like one of the primary components of beat like this. From there, I just added some super simple drums. Again, I think this is like maybe a 1 bar or 2 bar beat. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure like certain elements of the drums are 1 bar long and then certain elements are just like 2 bars long. But anyhow, this is the hi-hat. Just a basic snare pattern. From there, I just added a really cool fat 808. Again, on beats like this, the 808 reigns king, and it's almost an instrument in and of itself, and it glues everything together. This is a distorted, slightly version of the Mexico Dro 808. I made this like a couple of years ago, and it's one of my go-tos whenever I'm making super ignorant beats. And the only other thing that comes in the beat drum-wise is just this snare accent at the very end. And then when you put everything together, again, you get this. There you have it, folks. This is my breakdown of the genius behind Playboi Carti's production. If you liked what I had to say in this video, please feel free to hit the subscribe button and give me a thumbs up. I'll be dropping all of the one-shot kits that I use, with the exception of the unreleased one, as links in the description, along with my social media profiles and my Instagram, my Twitter page. I'm looking forward to starting this journey with all of you guys. See you later.